Hello, everyone. I'm incredibly fucking tired and unprepared. I'm Spike.
I'm Kel. I'm weighed down by all the responsibility on my shoulders and need people to answer their emails.
I'm Bree Wolf, and I'm doing pretty good tonight, actually.
Thank you. Welcome to the Geek Show again, everybody. Thank you for coming. Hi, Ellen Lord. Hi, everybody. And yeah, we have a special guest, and our special guest is Bree Wolf, who is a cartoonist and a game developer and an Iron Circus creator in general.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, happy to have you. So tell us, what have you been up to? What is life like?
Oh God. Since the launch of Hex Americana last winter, I've been actually working on a new book. This one is for Abrams. Hasn't been officially announced, but it is also an action comedy. It's going to be my first collaboration with another author. I'll certainly be talking more about it once we get further on. It's very early, but I am very excited because I've been getting to draw a bunch of very silly kids, and that is always a good time for me.
Best kind. But yeah, careful not to say anything. See, the thing is, it's like Iron Circus is a intensely unprofessional operation, so I never know like what is okay to say at various points in time of like publication. Like I have a general idea that like don't spoil it or whatever, but when I announce new books, I'm just like, is this the right time to do it every time? Like, I don't know. So Abrams, I'm sure, has probably given you the rundown of like, don't talk about it to this degree until X point. So don't get in trouble for our sake.
I am sure that my publisher wouldn't mind, but mostly it's going to be a while before I can have anything like super ready to show.
Is it going to be another bruiser like Hex Americana?
A lightweight 200-ish pound.
Oh, pages. Svelte. Compared anyway.
Hopefully will not take another 6 years to finish up.
Oh, such is life. Honestly, Kel is managing editor at Iron Circus, and so they are aware of this, and we have conversations about this constantly, that Iron Circus is among that sort of subset of publishers where, to be blunt, we cannot afford anyone's undivided attention yet. Like, we're not at that point where we can give someone like a 50K advance and have them just power through a book in a year. We can't do that. You know, maybe one day, maybe in the future, but not right now.
Oh, I see what they're saying. Assumption Prime was mentioning the title at the top.
Oh, gracious! Oh, I forgot to change that. I'll change that right now. Thank you. Oops.
Thank you for catching that.
Thank you, Assumption Prime. Like I said, this is not a professional situation. Let's see if I can figure out which part of the interface that is. Oh, there it is. Found it. Okay, so...
I cannot, for the life of me, find my Cintiq pen.
Uh-oh.
Where did it go?
It's over.
If you hear me moving around, I'm looking for it.
Oop. Let's do caps. Whoop. There we go. There, I fixed it. And you know what? Let's go the extra mile and center it. I'm so professional. Bam. Oh, amazing. Now we're good to go. Hello, Nat Fisher. Hello, Daryl. Hello, Either Tales. Hello, Miss Ellesmere. Hello, Assumption Prime. Thank you for coming. Oh, God. This is the last geek show I'm going to be doing in the month of June. I guess I don't even know what fucking month it is. Jesus Christ. In the month of June. I don't. This is the last one I'm going to be doing because I'm going to be going to... I'm going to be going to San Diego against my will, kicking and screaming, and doing ALA. And I know, like, other people are like, oh, that sounds fun. It's not. It's not fun. Doing conventions is not fun. Nothing about it is fun.
Conventions are exhausting.
Conventions are awful. They're the worst thing on earth.
God, tell me about it. I took a break for ages, and my first convention really since 2018 was going to Emerald City Comic Con 2022 because I was like, oh well, I want to start going back to conventions once I have Hex Americana finished, but I have no idea what a convention even looks like anymore. And so I went to Emerald City. I was just wandering around and like talking to people, wasn't selling anything. And I was hearing people talk about like, oh yeah, the numbers are still like not quite up to like pre-convention levels. And I was like, this feels like more people than should ever be in the same space. Like I don't know how I ever did this before. I don't know how anybody does this.
It's terrible. I don't know if have you ever subjected yourself to San Diego Comic-Con?
No, because I feel like I would have a heart attack.
It's terrible. Oh god, it's so fucking terrible.
No, okay.
Yes,
so,
yes,
Bree,
Kel.
Well, you think all conventions are terrible. Bree, since you've been to Emerald City, if you took two Emerald Cities and put them next to each other, that is San Diego Comic-Con.
San Diego's so much worse than that. Bree, if you have ever seen the video shot of the finishing lots at Beef Slaughterhouse Productions by like Animal Liberation Front, like where they find like the worst slaughterhouses in Texas. And the
you
cows
haven't
are just
been to San Diego or Emerald City in years.
They're horrible. They're horrible.
So what I'm telling you is that Emerald City has gotten worse.
Oh.
And San Diego is not as bad as you think. You have made it like you have over-exaggerated its badness
it's
in
bad.
Your memory.
No, it's bad. It's bad. It's terrible. It's bad.
I mean, Emerald City was absolutely that was a nightmare.
Yes.
A brief moment of walking through it as just
So-
like trying to buy something for somebody, and I understand why so many people were walking by the tables with like glassy eyes.
It's just a nightmare.
So like that's why I think two Emerald Cities is a valid comparison. Because all cons are hell, and I don't think San Diego is especially worse than any other mainstream comic show. And Spike, you cannot say this. You can't disagree with me because you haven't been to a mainstream comic show in like 10 years.
No, okay, first of all, I went to San Diego multiple times in fairly but not super recent history.
You haven't been to San Diego since before the pandemic.
Okay, fair enough.
Which was 5 years ago at the latest.
That's not 10 years. I was there for Comicsology, remember?
So that is 6 years ago.
So that's not 10. 6 is not 10.
But I'm saying you have a warped perspective.
Oh, I'm sure it's only gotten worse, though.
No, because here's the thing, Spike. What San Diego has done is has spread out through downtown San Diego.
Terrible.
So
awful.
What is worse?
Awful.
Is New York Comic Con.
Oh my! New York is the absolute worst convention in the country. Period.
And Emerald City, also Reed Pop keeps trying to shove more and more people into a limited space.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I say San Diego is not so bad, because while there are more people, quote unquote, attending San Diego, they're not all jammed in the convention center. Unlike literally any other convention.
Seriously though, feedlot. If you've ever seen like a beef slaughterhouse feedlot where they like finish the beef off, like in multiple ways, haha. But like the cows, how it's like if one fainted, they wouldn't actually fall down because they're packed that tightly. That was my personal lived experience of my last San Diego Comic-Con attendance. It was terrible.
But that is also the case of Emerald City and New York Comic Con. Like...
Oh, that's awful sounding.
And New York Comic Con is infinitely worse because Reed Pop is too cheap to get enough guards for all the doors. Mm-hmm. So there's a bottleneck for people coming and going into the convention center. So San Diego, by nature of being a nonprofit, Jersey, Spike is not explaining New York Comic Con. Spike is explaining San Diego Comic Con. So, Spike, you are wrong about San Diego Comic Con. That is New York Comic Con, though, because New York Comic Con is all those people at San Diego have to come and go from the same exit. So San Diego, by nature of having 8 different exits, spreading out through downtown, and all that makes it a better experience than any Reed Pop show.
Are you invalidating my lived experience of San Diego?
Yes, I am.
How
I'm
dare you?
Wrong.
I am not wrong. It sucks. Bree, it sucks. Please listen to me. It's terrible.
On my to-do list. I'm
not saying it's a good time. I'm just saying it's not as bad as New York and Emerald City.
Yeah, but I will be at the San Diego Convention Center, the one they have San Diego Comic-Con in, next week. Not for San Diego Comic-Con, though, obviously. I will be there for ALA Annual, which is the American Library Association Annual, which is the weirdest con, or at least it would be weird to anyone who is used to comic shows. I've talked about this before. I will recap briefly. This is the con you go to where you pretty much don't sell anything and you give all your books away. That's what you do. San Diego Comic-Con is a retail con. It's more familiar to like someone who does a lot of comic conventions. It like the format is like, yeah, it's a hand-to-hand retail direct sales to consumer. It's direct to consumer stuff. I know what a convention is. Imagine a San Diego Comic-Con where people come up to your booth and pick up the book and flip through it and then just walk away with it. That's ALA. And the reason this happens is because ALA is attended by librarians and library workers in general. And these are people who really like books and are book nerds. And ALA gets a whole bunch of people in one room that have the power to say, you know, I am the buyer for the New York library system. If they like your book, they'll buy 20, you know, that sort of thing. But they won't do it there at the show. They'll just buy 20 when they get home. And the best way to think of it is a normal comic book convention, you know, like SPX, San Diego, ECCC. You spend $3,000 getting the booth, shipping things there, getting your hotel, getting your flight, whatever. And you hope to walk away with $5,000 direct in hand after the weekend. With ALA, you spend like $6,000 and you hope it translates into $40,000, $50,000 sales over the course of the rest of the year. So it's like higher stakes and bigger buy-in. That's what ALA is. And no instant gratification. And I hate it because it's a convention. But it's not as bad as San Diego because you're not spending... Well, it's not as bad as a normal comic convention because you're not spending the entire time doing math in your head, being all like, how many more comics do I need to sell before this is officially worth my time? But Kel does San Diego Comic-Con every year still, so.
Yeah, and I make money.
That's gross.
That's why I go.
No.
I only go to shows where I make money.
Yeah, I mean, there are shows where Iron Circus makes... God, like, there's no way to put this without sounding like a huge piece of shit, but, Iron Circus is at a point where there's definitely where we would make money at pretty much any show we chose to go to, and it's a matter of the level of effort we need to put in. Is it justified by the money we end up making? In the case of ALA, yes, that is true. It does justify the money we end up making. For kind of nearly every other show on Earth that classifies itself as a Comic Con, they need annual review to decide whether we still keep doing them. So, hi Sack of Books, hi Jules Rivera, hi Plot, hi everyone. Oh, hi Nudist. Yeah, it's just... I'm sorry, Bree, we're like sitting here like bitching and you're just like, holy shit, these people are horrible. I'm sorry, we're fucking old and grizzled and like just like veterans just like rocking on the stoop, smoking corncob pipes, talking about the old days. I'm only slightly exaggerating though. San Diego is a
Yeah,
nightmare.
it's all good to know, and someday I'll brave San Diego at least once just to say that I've been there.
Yeah, just for the
I
spectacle.
would love to. ALA seems really interesting, if only because I really like librarians, and
Yeah.
certainly they've been very helpful on my end. I've actually gotten to meet a number of librarians through conventions, just on my own, which has been great.
Yeah, librarians are cool as shit. The only front line there is between like our books and like these days like gigantic fucking weirdos who are determined to, because Iron Circus, I don't know if anyone knows this, Iron Circus is a target of book banners, like a pretty serious one. We have multiple titles that are constantly being challenged all over the country, and not the porno titles. Like the porno titles definitely get challenged, but most of the ones that get challenged are not the porno titles. The ones that are getting challenged a lot right now are Occulted and Banned Book Club. And we live in this post-irony world where someone can demand a school system ban a book called Banned Book Club without like even blinking. It's kind of crazy.
Sorry, I'm typing an email because it going unanswered is stressing me out.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. I was wondering why you were being so quiet.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let us know when you're done.
Yeah, no, you just keep chatting. I'll let you know when I'm done.
Okay, is this to who I think it is?
Yes, it is.
Okay, well, I'll leave you alone then. Yay!
Yeah.
Iron Circus work. It literally never fucking ends.
Yep.
Yeah. You know you're in a weird place when you're like fantasizing about, oh, one day when if things go really well, we're gonna have a marketing director. Yeah, we're gonna have someone who just wrangles the inboxes, just someone who only does the inboxes. That'll be incredible. Just such pedestrian dreams. It's like the adult version of when the age you start being happy you get socks at Christmas. That's what it is. The thing is, like, now that I've learned to delegate, that's all I want to fucking do. I want like hyper specialized positions everywhere so everybody gets everything done with the optimum level of competency and speed. Because everything's a fucking compromise.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly sounds nice, and
Yeah.
as nice as it is to work with Iron Circus or other publishers on a project, like, like I'm certainly doing a lot of the work by myself for a lot of the time, and that's just kind of how it has to be.
Yeah, like one of the things I'd love to be able to offer to authors is like someone who will put together book tours for them, because we do have creators that do book tours, but they tend to be like self-starters or people who just like really really wanted to have a book tour, and they frankly just kind of go out and do it under their own steam, because we don't have someone who can literally dedicate their days to organizing like multi-city book tours with flights and hotels and shit. Like we don't have the body power for that. But maybe one day in the future we will.
I certainly would love that. I was briefly considering a book tour for Hex Americana last fall, and that was partly probably a good thing for me to put aside. One, because I was mega burnt out last summer for understandable reasons, and then also the book release also got delayed a bit.
Yeah.
At least, and there's nobody's fault at that point. Yeah. Like it was just they're on a boat, like Ocean's gonna do it.
Yeah, one of the issues with globalization there is, I mean, here's the thing, like, we can't really, there's nothing we can really fucking do about globalization. We are all swept up in the tide of the will of the market, and if we want to publish books, we're going to have to print them at a certain price and get them to where they need to go at a certain price, so we can charge a certain price so people don't immediately be like, how fucking dare you, and not buy it, and we instantly go out of business. Like that's just kind of how it is. And the thing that like kind of just sticks in my craw and has eternally stuck in my craw is we will never ever ever equal the economy of scale of someone like Random House. Like Random House, or a better example, Scholastic. Scholastic they print literally 1 million books at a time, and that means that when they put them in bookstores, they can charge like $8 for a 200 page graphic novel. And we cannot do that. That is not a thing we can do right now. So our books are sitting on the shelf next to Scholastic graphic novels, which are the same size, which are $8, and our books are like $15. And so there's that disadvantage right there, just from the jump. And it's something that like we can't really do anything about. And when you are participating in a market such as this, it's going to be full of all these things you can't do anything about. So you need to figure something out. And so far, our move has just been, you know, interesting subject matter you're not going to find anywhere else and very pretty cover effects. And it seems to work so far.
As far as like value goes, I mean, I'm shocked that you were able to get Hex Americana out for 15.
Yeah, we have our print tech high to thank for that. That is their area of expertise, and they are excellent at getting the right quotes from the right people. And of course, we have that one thing that we have to, I mean, obviously this is not like a issue with Hex, but oh god, like a recurring issue is because we print in China, we always have to be worried about Chinese rules.
Censorship.
Yeah.
I'm done typing for now.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm still stressed out, but I'm done typing.
Okay. It's okay.
I will need you to chime in as soon as Geek Show's done.
Absolutely, no problem. Got you. But yeah, the thing is we were like temporarily kind of concerned Hex might be an issue with our printers because China does this thing. It's very authoritarian. I know that's very surprising to everybody. They do this thing where there's a lot of uneven enforcement of the rules they arbitrarily decide on. And one of the
frequently don't like ghosts.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was going. And you know, Hex prominently features a ghost in a main role that is unambiguously, you know, like the spirit of a dead person, you know. And that is a thing that Chinese printers, I should say specifically, have basically written emails to Western publishers and been like, yeah, we can't print this. And it's like, why? There's a ghost in it. Like, bitch, and? It's like, that we don't publish things that encourage belief in the supernatural. And then the publisher's like, that would have been super fucking cool to know before we got the presses rolling, but thanks. And that did not happen with Hex, but we do have a recurring issue with Chinese printers and our insistence that Tibet is a country. So
just borders in general, because it wasn't because Tibet was the problem with Cautionary Fables Asia. But recently a book we sent to the printer, China disagrees with where the Russian border is.
And they'll straight up fucking tell you, like, we're not printing this unless you edit this so it favors our version of reality. And for multiple books, we've been all like, how about you kick rocks and we'll print in South Korea, fuck off. I sure could go for some of that. The new thing in manufacturing, I can't believe I'm the kind of person that needs to know this, but this is who I am now.
Like, let's talk about Bree's book and not get into the nitty-gritty of...
Let's not talk about nearshoring, because that's my new obsession. Let's not talk about nearshoring. Let's talk about Hex Americana. Bree, what is Hex Americana about?
You asked. Hex Americana is my spooky southern romance action comedy. It's about a boy and a ghost who race cars and fall in love in a magical version of Kentucky, early 2000s. It's got cars, witches, gnomes, chickens, ghosts, gay feelings, all the good stuff you need in a story.
Wow, what a good Pride Month book. If I were looking,
and ghosts.
If I were looking for a Pride Month purchase to support quirky, interesting, queer authors, I would definitely consider Hex Americana, available wherever fine books are sold.
Should have a jingle for this.
Exactly. Maybe one. Oh, don't talk about that. I'll get into fucking Sonic branding because I'm a goddamn lunatic.
Oh god.
But you say Hex took you 6 years to make. Do you remember how you proposed Hex, because I do.
Oh, I do. I don't know if you've seen this, Spike, but I made a little art book zine about the making of the book.
Oh.
I was like, hey, I'd love to have, something to commemorate, and I have all this concept sketches. And so I actually have a screen cap of that Twitter thread.
Oh, cool.
So
I did not see
I
that,
have
no.
the exact tweet that you put out, where I can just pull it up right here.
Right on.
What is it? 2017, and shoot. Oh, it's actually on my other hard drive. But basically, you were like, "Oh, I know nobody wants to draw all those damn cars, but I'd love to have somebody pitch a sci-fi, fantasy YA graphic novel." About rally racing, and immediately my response was, "Yo, I'll hella do this."
Yeah, I fucking love rally racing. This is something that I talk about a lot on social media. America is horrible, so we don't have a huge rally scene here. We do have something, we don't have a lot, but rallies are very distinct from the kind of car racing scene we have here, which I'll do my best to not, fucking pontificate on. But suffice to say, American car racing basically revolves around the runoff of Prohibition. Like, the reason that we are obsessed with NASCAR as a nation is Prohibition. That's it. That's why we have that, and only we have that. The rest of the world is primarily interested in two things. Formula One, which I don't like for various reasons, justifiable or not, and rally racing. And rally racing is kind of like racing for the people. You can get in a rally race. You can enter a rally race with kind of a car you have made, as long as you meet the safety requirements. And some rally races have, you have to have done this before requirements too, or qualifications like the championships and shit. But rally racing is like a thing you can do with your normal human budget and normal human car. If anyone here plays video games, there's a really popular one called My Summer Car, which is made by, I think, a Finnish guy. It's like a really weird, quirky game about his summer where he was 17, and it revolves around him fixing up a car to rally race, which is very big in Scandinavia, rally racing. And I love rally racing because it's democratic and it's exciting, and frankly it's way more interesting than NASCAR. And so I watch a lot of rally races, and every time a big rally race is happening, like Dakar for example, I pretty much won't shut the fuck up about it on social media for like a week straight. And in one of those fits, that's when I made that tweet, and it was on Twitter back then, so it was a tweet, and I was just like, yeah, I just want to fucking publish a rally racing because I think like the rally race is a interesting concept in general, and I wish there was more kind of like visibility for it in North America. And I'm so glad you brought me Hex Americana so people could, young children could be indoctrinated into rally racing.
This is very true, and I feel a little guilty, I guess, because I do have some rally racing, especially by the end, but it is it's a mixture, which is sort of the intent.
Yeah.
There is a variety of racing in the book and various contexts, which is the point.
Yes.
But that was kind of the idea, was like running off of that and having the like more like the first kind of big set piece is more of like a classic like stock car race. Yeah. Backwoods like kind of arena, but then having more of the like cross-country long-form rally under like more dire plot circumstances, which was part of the fun. But yeah, like that was a thing that I certainly, if I ever did a direct sequel to Hex, I think having some kind of like deeper delve into rally racing culture or just different elements of racing as a as a sport, I think would be really interesting. I also just like cars as like as a means of plot, like I a vehicle, if you will.
Waka waka.
Yeah. But yeah, I can't remember, Spike, if I actually told you sort of the other part of that where I was like basically coming up with a pitch like at Rose City. Because I didn't actually have the pitch until I walked over to you.
Oh. Okay. I didn't know that.
So I was at Rose City. I was, and for folks who aren't aware, I had finished my second board game Kickstarter, an arena strategy game called Tiny Sword Smash, and I was a bit burnt out on games, so I was like, oh, I think I want to do something else, but I'm like not sure what to do next. I saw that tweet, so I was like thinking about that, back in my head, and I was at Rose City. I realized that you were there as well, so I was like, "Hey, if I have some free time, I could just
The
like about
one
an idea."
time that Spike went to Rose City, so you really lucked out.
It really was fate, and I literally I had like a little notebook of like, okay, sci-fi fantasy. What could I do with this? I was like, okay, because I like the idea of a racing thing, but like, like magical things, I think would be really good. Okay, so like, and this is 2017, actually. So I was like thinking a lot about my hometown, Louisville, Kentucky, where I grew up. Shout out to Unbridled Spirits, the Ville, Louisville, everything. But I was like thinking about that. I was like, oh, racing in Kentucky, maybe like the backwoods kind of thing. And literally was just like writing out little different combinations of riders of like, oh, well, I like the idea of teams anyway, because that's part of the rally racing spirit. And then also you have like the character dynamics of like having multiple characters in a vehicle, like you have the partnership going on. And so I literally just like started writing out like I had like a golem and a creator and like a witch and a familiar and like a boy and a ghost. And I was like, hey, a sec, there's okay, so like a ghost is like fun, but like, oh, what if the ghost died in the car? And that really became the sort of like, oh, there's the hook. That's the thing that I really like am excited about. And that was when I just like walked over to Spike and was like, hey, I have a pitch for you. And it really did kind of spin off of that.
See, you gotta shoot your shot, people. You gotta shoot your shot. You gotta just fucking be aware of opportunities and be all like, I bet that dumb bitch would publish anything to do with a rally race, and then go over and make it happen. Make it happen.
Shitting works, and sometimes it works after a long period of gestation.
Yeah, exactly. But you did mention something about game design, and I must admit I don't know anything about that aspect of your creativity.
Oh my.
Yeah. 2017 was my last major published game. I have a couple prototypes that I've been working on in the last couple of years, but because I was focusing on Hex Americana since really the end of 2017, it's been put to the side. Mm-hmm. But I did actually have the opportunity to combine those. I had a book published through the First Second Maker comic series. So I was contacted by them back in 2020. And I had been a fan of the series before because I really loved their idea of like, oh, we're going to do a series of graphic novels about DIY hobbies with activities so that like readers can follow along, do a thing, learn how to make their own stuff, and also get a fun, cute narrative. And so when they contacted me to go, hey, someone told us you do comics and games. We have a book about making games through comics. Would you be interested? I said yes. So I spent the next year working with Jesse Fuchs, who is a professor at NYU teaching game design. And so what I did was basically adapt his curriculum for game design to from a college freshman perspective, and broadening that scope to make it more palatable for a middle grade audience. Because I realized that like there's not a lot of material that talks about game design at that level. And there's a lot of kids who are interested in game design, but who just kind of maybe don't know where to start. And I was also specifically on the game design aspect rather than like programming or like the technical aspects, basically. Like one, I'm a tabletop designer, so like my perspective on coding is not going to be very helpful. But I wanted to talk about the broad concepts of like, well, how are you structuring your play? How are you setting up your rules? How do you think about like the game as a narrative experience? Because like one of the things that I kind of talk about in that book is the ways that like the rules that you set up for your game dictate the narrative that takes place, and there are variants within that narrative, of course. But like changing the rules changes the story is one way that I would put it. And so kind of being able to formulate some ideas of the intersection of storytelling and video games and the ways that both of those entail play and communication and collaboration and empathy for other people was really important to me. And so I'm very pleased with how that turned out. And
it sounds like it.
Delighted. Thank you. It was a very fun project.
That does sound cool. Because, I mean, I don't know if you know or not, but Iron Circus, next Monday, everyone. Next Monday. Holy shit. Next Monday. We're going to be doing our kickoff of our Indie-pocalypse video game collaboration. And so, like every other idiot on the planet, I think about game design a lot and think about, oh man, I wish I could make a game a lot. So people who talk about the theory of that sort of thing. I subscribe to so many YouTube channels where people talk about how their big pet peeve is people want to make games, but they don't know how to make games that are fun. And the point of the vast majority of games that are made, whether they're tabletop or video games or whatever, is they're a diversion, that they're meant to be fun. And nobody seems to stop and ask themselves, is my game fun, before they hit the publish button or put it on drive-thru RPG.
I actually think what's fun is I watch some game theory that's are games supposed to be fun?
No, that's horrible.
I feel like the games that frequently pull me in are the ones that are is this supposed to be fun? Are we having a good time? Or is this suffering incarnate? And I'm I think I want to play the game that's suffering incarnate.
Oh, God, no.
I saw Super Eye Patch Wolf's video about Fear and Hunger, and I was I want to play that game. That looks like torture.
Yeah.
And I own but have not started playing yet Pathologic 2. So I'm ready to suffer that way too. Suffering is apparently how you can get me to check out a game. And there's also those games that are people making fun of them call them walking simulators.
Yeah.
And I'm I don't know, I kind of appreciate this experimental what even is a game?
Yeah, that's
oh yeah, I mean, I will certainly say, as a dweeb that spent most of her high school years on TigSource, talking about what is a game, just basically having all those conversations that people are still having 10 years later. I greatly appreciate that kind of thing. And yeah, this is sort of why I think fun as a quantity, or trying to say is this game fun, is can be useful, but also isn't always necessarily what people are even trying to go for. That's kind of for me personally, it's why I go for engaging. Does this engage at a level? Because what Phil's describing for Fear and Hunger or Pathologic is fun is not necessarily the quite the same experience or the same description you would give to that, but there is something compelling about it. And in the same way, and the thing that I love about games as a medium is that the range and styles of engagement can be so broad. Like a walking sim, if it is the classic Dear Esther,
yeah,
that is in a lot of ways a museum exhibit, which is
the YouTuber Izzy, she puts a million Z's in her name, so I don't actually know how you're supposed to pronounce it. But she did a video about a game that was I forget the actual name of it, but it was You're a Little Red Riding Hood, and so there's several sisters. Huh? The Path. Okay, yeah. So, so that one looks really interesting, but I could also see why someone is this is boring and uninteresting, because it's a metaphor. All of it is metaphors, and so it's kind of just weird imagery, and maybe you can piece together a story, but I could see someone finding that extremely boring, because there isn't a whole lot of interactivity. It's more like you just control the person and then you eventually find their quote unquote wolf. And hear like their story in bits and pieces of like dream logic metaphor. But and then you get with like something like Fear and Hunger is kind of the satisfaction of figuring all the strategies out because it doesn't teach you how to do anything. Also seems like really rewarding if you can figure it out.
See, this is
yeah.
This is making me think about how like right now apparently it's not like fully released yet, but like Elden Ring has gotten some DLC, right? And Elden
right?
Yeah, and Elden Ring is one of those FromSoft games that fascinate me because they are the exact opposite of my idea of fun. It's like that is not, after working literal no shit 12 to 16 hour days trying to run a fucking comic book company, and it's like it's time for me to sit down and enjoy myself for 2 hours before I am literally unconscious for the rest of the night. My idea of fun is not Elden Ring. It is not dying over and over and over and being fucking, not just losing, but being utterly fucking destroyed, being atomized 15 times and not getting anywhere for the 2 hours I play. But there are people I know that can't get enough of that shit. So it's clearly working for some people. But I am like so into Elden Ring on this level where it's like, wow, I hate this. Like, I hate this conceptually.
I think, for me, I'm not into Elden Ring because that is about timing and reflexes.
Oh, okay.
And super hard games that are about remembering what to do. I think that's more appealing to me because, like, Fear and Hunger is made in RPG Maker.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have good reflexes, quote unquote, but you do have to remember, okay, I cut this arm off this bad guy first, and then I should block because then he's going to do this type of attack, and then I should attack him here, and then block again. And so it's like figuring out the like ways to kill each enemy, or the ways to like not engage with them, because like one of the things they point out is if you play as the thief character, you can find like a disguise making kit and like disguise yourself as one of the monsters. So it's stuff like that. It's like how to both avoid fights properly, but also how to like, if you do get into a fight, what do you do? And so that's sort of like, because it's a puzzle, basically, is what it is to me.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And yeah, so it's resource management, and I love that.
Yeah. See, like,
I really like Don't Starve Together, and I've been told by multiple friends that they find it extremely stressful and they cannot play it.
I'm unfortunately one of those people.
Yeah, ditto.
I'm very bad at I'm very bad at those kinds of games, and I know that's actually, like, I was playing with some folks, I just kept dying over and over again, and I didn't even really know why.
You're probably going crazy.
Probably, yeah, but it was just, I felt very lost.
Yeah, the games that I've been playing lately, I mentioned one today on Blue Sky. They're like, I don't sit there and tell anyone, it's like, oh, you know, that game you play is stupid and you shouldn't play it because it's not fun objectively. Because the shit I play, I think the vast majority of people would find objectively not fun. The first one is I am pretending to sail a ship around various archipelagos and sell tea. The second one is I am a slumlord. And the third one is just RimWorld. Those are the 3 games I play more than anything else.
I mean, you know me, I also love RimWorld.
Yeah, but Slumlord Simulator has been taking up a lot of my time lately. And by the way, it's not called Slumlord Simulator for people who are curious. The actual name of it is Open Sewer. It's like Germanish kind of spelling. It's not literally Open Sewer, but it's OBEN, like SEUER, Open Sewer, like, because that's the name of the neighborhood, but everyone calls it Open Sewer. And you get stuck in there, and you have to run a tenement and repair the buildings and move people in and, like, solve all these mysteries and stuff, and it's really fun.
So, the other way that I play video games, other than, like, getting invested in a puzzle, is I really like to try and break games, to like find the limits of where the code is. Cause so Spike, you know how in The Sims, Sims cannot fuck their relatives.
That is true.
How long does the game count Sims as related? Like, how many generations?
That is definitely something I've wondered.
I know the answer because I did that with the express purpose. 5 generations and then they're not related anymore.
Today I learned.
Yes. That's how I know that if you don't go to where the first dragon spawns in Skyrim, then no dragons can spawn. And I know that you can play most of the game without dragons ever spawning. St. Ellesmere is saying too. So Ellesmere, while they stop being recorded as related, they still won't make out with each other after 2 generations. They have to be further than second cousins.
They just won't, Kel said with great frustration.
Yeah. I also tested 5 generations is when no one is related to anybody. And I know this because I had a vampire sim that hooked up with their descendant.
Fantastic. Very normal, very cool.
So I'm very much a person who's like, I wonder what the limits of this game is.
And now you know.
Yes. I always want to break a game.
Yeah. I'm glad you're here.
I remember one time, Spike, we were playing a tabletop RPG that your husband found called Geiger Counter. And I played it once, and then I immediately figured out how to break it the second time. Because there's a so for those who don't know, Geiger Counter is basically you roll dice to figure out the big monster that you're going to fight in this one-shot tabletop RPG. And it says that you should assume everyone's character will die. Because you're supposed to be playing like a sci-fi original made for TV movie. So the monsters are all like radioactive mecha shark. Or something like that. Like you're in Sharknado. And because characters will die frequently, it is built into the game that everyone takes turn being the quote-unquote director. But when a character dies, the character that is quote-unquote the most responsible for that character's death gets like an extra attack die next time they face the monster. So I played the game normally the first time we played, and then the second time I was a criminal murderer who killed everyone. I think I killed more people than the monster in the game did. And I think I had as much attack die as the monster by the end of the game.
Nice.
horrifying.
They didn't expect me to turn on the other players. But yeah, I like break games.
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds awful to say I like grinding, because that sounds just like pathetic and hopeless. But I really like when there's visible progress, because I put in the hours in a game, and I don't know any other thing to call that than grinding. Because in Open Sewer, your tenement, it starts off with like literal filth and dirt and corpses in it, like, you know, mushrooms growing in the bathrooms, and just like wooden plywood for floor, like rather strips of plywood for the floors, and just diseased rats running around everywhere. And if you like put in the work and you go and you find wood and you find stone and you pay the contractor and you gather the materials and you clean everything up with lots of detergent and bleach, and you put in the time to move people into the tenement, things get a whole lot better. And one of the things that I was really excited about, because again, I'm a huge fucking loser and this is my idea of fun, I finally paid for the nice facade for the building. And the building was enshrouded in, you know, plastic sheeting and platforms for like 9 days, and every day I went in and out of the building I would see that, and I would just get super excited. It's like, in just a week the building will be unveiled. And then it got unveiled, and I was really happy because I waited 9 in-game days to see the nice tiled facade, the tile and plaster facade of the filthy little tenement. Also, in Open Sewer, you spawn in, it's required that you spawn in with a bunch of addictions, and I got rid of all of mine, and I'm very happy about that. You can get rid of addictions in Open Sewer. This is how you know where the game was made, by the way. You can get rid of your addictions in Open Sewer if you go to the sauna enough. So I went to the sauna a bunch. I don't know what it is with me and like games made by Scandinavians. They know how to scratch my itch, I guess. But if you go to the sauna enough, you will be cured of alcoholism. So that's what I did.
I'm skeptical of that, but okay.
Not that that's an issue for me, but like,
yeah,
I could stand going to a sauna.
Yeah, be cured of alcoholism. You know, it fixes everything.
Like, what happens if I'm not already an alcoholic? Like, does it switch on and off, does it just help me get rid of a different bad habit?
You'll get addicted to saunas. That's how they get you in.
Yeah, the addictions in Open Sewer. The addictions you can spawn into is you could be addicted to psychotropic mushrooms, you could be addicted to cigarettes, and you could be addicted to alcohol. Those are the 3 addictions you can spawn in with. And I spawned in with addicted to cigarettes and alcohol. And I kicked them both just by going to the sauna a lot. And so I think you could probably also do it with the mushrooms. The one thing you can't fix in Open Sewer is if you have something called the fungal disease. Ooh. And fortunately, I did not spawn in with that.
The fungal disease? That does sound like a sauna would make it worse.
Yeah, the fungal disease.
Funguses love warm, moist places.
Yeah, yeah, and like the whole bit of the game is that you are being sent into this literal walled off slum, which you cannot escape from, because there's this fungal disease going around that's infecting people and killing them. And people are just using the presence of this disease in areas that have poor sanitation and therefore have more poor people to just send all these poor people to these literal ghettos. And you are one of the poor people sent to the ghetto. And you have to make sure to not catch the fungal disease while you're in there, while also rebuilding the tenement. And it's a fun game. It doesn't sound fun, but it is.
Is the fungal disease black mold?
It is not black mold. It is a green glowing mushroom that grows out of your skin and makes you see dead people.
Oh.
You know, your average mushroom infection. Yeah, I like indie games. I like little weird games. In case it was not obvious, I like little weird games.
Played Pacific Drive yet?
I've heard of Pacific Drive. I have not played Pacific Drive. I've been meaning to watch some LPs of Pacific Drive, though.
I think you would really like it. I was deeply obsessed with it at the beginning of this year.
Ah.
It was, uh, as I mentioned before with Don't Starve, survival crafting games are not my forte.
Uh-huh.
I do not normally do well with them, but the idea of a road trip with a haunted car through
Ooh.
spooky Pacific Northwest with like a bunch of SCPs roaming around
Mm-hmm.
sounded extremely up my alley, and it turned out it was very much fun.
It does sound haunted car sounds good. Because
Very much, yeah. If you've seen any like playthroughs, like if you've played Control, there's certainly some overlap in tone
mm-hmm.
and concepts, which I really love. It is definitely worth the investment, and I'm very excited because the team has been talking about the success of their game, and they're definitely planning on like adding more to the release. Like they put out a couple like neat skins like a couple months ago, like a special Year of the Dragon. Like there's so much customization for the car. It's funny they mentioned My Summer Car because I'm certain that that had to be an influence on this thing for like all of the ways that you can like walk around and tune with your car, mess around with like the different plates and the tires, and you can find little decals and special like stickers to put on your car and other things.
Yeah. One of the interesting things to me about My Summer Car is it spawned this whole like mini subgenre of like yokel fixing up their car in ethnically distinct backwater games. Like there's one called Montbassu, which is about being Quebecois, and you live off of literal maple syrup and poutine, and you're fixing up your car in French-speaking Canada. And I know there's like a couple more, but like Montbassu is the only other one I remember by name. And I just
I know Jalopy.
oh
Which is,
there's Jalopnik, isn't there? Or Jalopy or what? Yeah,
it's yeah. So what is this other one? Mombasa?
Montbassu. I don't speak French, but I think that's what it's called,
I have
Montbassu.
no idea how to spell that. So if you figure it out, let me know. I would love to take a look at all those. But yeah,
Yeah.
I certainly love all of those. I love a funky little car.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I love a funky little car. I love a funky little car game. I love indie games in general. Like not to be one of these like firebrand types or anything, but this is a thing that like I keep coming back to. Like anybody who's kind of like bemoaning and hand wringing like the future of video games, it's like I just wish they could understand that all these really huge companies could collapse like a fucking frat bonfire on rush night tomorrow, and video games as a concept would be fine. Like there are so many cool interesting games being made by like single person teams and 5-person teams and like people who are just like really dedicated to making an interesting game. Like the discussion we were having before, not necessarily a fun game, but like a game people want to play. And there's so many games I'm looking forward to that are just being put out by these really small studios, but they just have this really really good idea. And I love that they're there, and I love that they're making this shit. I love that there's a game where you can just be a really shitty goose. Like let's just be a garbage ass goose and go around and be mean to children. That's a fun game. There's that's cool. Like we should be excited about the future of games. We shouldn't be all like, "Oh no, what is Activision doing now?" Like who gives a fuck?
The funny thing about Untitled Goose Game to me is that it did get a national grant, which first of all just means that I think it was Australia.
Oh, that sounds like that makes sense. Australia loves giving weird animation and games money.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm always in awe of the amount and variety of games that are constantly coming out. It feels very intimidating, and
Yeah.
this is true for video games as well as tabletop, where like I have some prototypes, and part of the reason I've been hesitating on like putting out more is I've been trying to just do more research, and I am just kind of floored by just how much is being explored at any given moment, and
Yeah.
it's intimidating.
It can be, can't it? Just like there's so many people. It's the volume is. This is something. There was a very sort of low. There was a thread on Blue Sky, but there wasn't like a ton of discussion. It was just people having their. They called them very appropriately their we used to drink from the hose moments, and one of the ones that I contributed was like I was a child during the time where you got one video game a year if you were good, and you played that video game 10 to 12 months, and that was your video game for that year. And you didn't feel like deprived, because it's not like now where it's this, it feels like every week is Christmas. Every time you load up Steam, 10 new games that you would happily play drop. And you just don't have the hours in the day to give everything, honestly, the attention it deserves. And there's stuff out there that it's kind of sad to think about, because again, I've kind of like dipped my toes into independent animation, and I can vouch for this happening in indie animation, so it's got to be happening in indie games, and I know it happens in indie comics, where there's stuff out there that's really worthy and really well crafted and a labor of love, and it's put out there for people to see, and it just kind of like bobs a bit and then sinks. And that's almost kind of sad to think about, you know? Like, there's somebody who probably spent Stardew Valley amounts of time on their weird little project, and it's really good. And they stick it on Steam, and they immediately drown. And it's not because of anything they did. It's just, there's so much stuff out there.
Yeah, I certainly consider myself a fan of those kinds of games. And that's the sort of thing that I really, like, collected a lot when I was, especially like high school and college, especially like this may date me a little bit and maybe says a lot about me as a person, but I had a new copy of Tulip from GameStop because it was a GameStop exclusive.
Oh, what's
God,
that?
like,
See, that sounds familiar. What is Tulip?
So Tulip is part of the Love Delic lineage, which you might have heard of them because Love Delic basically was a bunch of different artists who kind of went to a couple different dev teams after their initial like Dreamcast games. But some of those folks went to make Moon Remix RPG, which only recently got a English official translation because Moon Remix RPG was a huge inspiration for Undertale.
Oh, okay.
And so all of the Love Delete games, they're like you may have heard of. There's Evo, the Search for Love, I think is what it's called. But there's like Chibi Robo is also part of that lineage. PL, game that never came out in the U.S. but had a European release. Captain Rainbow, which was another non-America Europe but did get a European release. That was on the Wii. There was like a bunch of like third-tier Nintendo characters on an island together. But like all of these kind of... and Little King Story is another more recent one that also has some like people involved with that. And one of the original creators on that has been making his own games with Onion Games, so like Million Onion Hotel and a couple other things. But the thing that's interesting about Love Delic is like all of these games are kind of a ground community and a bunch of weirdos and trying to like understand those weirdos and find ways to coexist. So like Tulip as a game is, you know, in basic gamer terms, you'd consider like a puzzle RPG adventure game where you play as this kid in like what would have been, I think it's supposed to be like not Meiji era, but like post-war Japan. And this kid moves into this little town and you have a prophetic dream where you see like the girl of your dreams in this. You literally find her the next day and she like shuns you saying like, oh, no, you need to be more experienced if you want to like be my lover. And so the game puzzle then is around building up your love experience by getting to know the townspeople, finding out their routines, figuring out what makes them happy, and then letting them letting you kiss them. Like is the central mechanic, is being able to kiss at any given moment. And if you choose correctly, then yeah, you'll get like a nice little fun cutscene. Otherwise, you'll like lose health and could potentially die. It is a very strange game, and it is just one of those things that lives in my head in different ways, because like that is just like you said, like that is a thing that I would never have thought of existing before. It's a thing that and certainly a lot of creators, I think, have those kinds of games in their head. In the same way that like a lot of comics creators have, like, here's this one book that like maybe nobody else read, but like I hold it dearly in my heart, and this is the thing that like drives all of my work for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I talked briefly on, I don't know how many folks here follow me on Blue Sky, but I talked, I think yesterday, about a book that I think about 24 years after I read it, and I still pull it out and reread it. And it's by a cartoonist named Dave Cooper. And hey, fun fact about Dave Cooper, you already know his work. Don't go, no, I don't. Yes, you do. If you've ever seen anything to do with Futurama, you know his work, because Dave Cooper primarily these days works in animation design. And if you've seen like the Galaxy Express building or the rocket ship, you know Dave Cooper's work because he did the design for those. That's Dave Cooper. But what I like that he did is all his graphic novels, honestly, but there's this one he did which is just like it is a morass. It is a swamp. It is swallowing up your white horse on your trip through Dreamland. That's obscure, sorry. There's this one book he did called Dan and Larry in Don't Do That! ! And it is a story about a little bird boy named Dan, and I don't even know how to describe him, a weird bulbous mushroom man named Larry. And Dan is 12 and Larry is 26, and for some reason they hang out. And everyone kind of recognizes this as strange except for Dan, who's 12 and just really excited that Larry lets him help him ink his comics, because Larry makes comics and they're a fairly serious hobby of his. And Larry's comics, here we go, star gnomes. And the gnomes look an awful lot like little boys, but they're not little boys. They're gnomes. And they get attacked by tentacles a lot. And again, Dan is just happy that he gets to have a real life.
Is this based on a true story?
I'm getting there!
Yeah.
This is, and he's just really excited he gets to have like a real comics credit. Like his name is in a comic book or additional inking work by Dan. It's like, wow, that's so cool. He's 12 and look what he gets to have. For whatever reason, his parents let him hang out with this man. And Larry in general is shown to be a very shitty, petulant, immature, almost bullying kind of guy. But him and Dan still hang out. And what you are thinking of happens. It happens. In the book, it happens. Happens a couple of times. And there is a moment after it happens which I think is kind of fascinating, because it speaks to, I think, a lot of the work Dave Cooper does down the line, which is Larry, the adult man, trips, falls, and slices the top of his head completely off. And fortunately, he works by cartoon logic. So there's something people can do about this. So Dan calls the EMTs, and the EMTs come over to fix Larry's head, to sew the top of his head back on. And while they're sewing the top of his head back on, Dan tries to be very casual about it, but he can't be. And he mentions, hey, while I was like, getting a wet cloth to put over the top of his head and waiting for you to come, I noticed there are these little black worms in his brain. What are those? And the EMT goes, what? And takes out a magnifying glass and looks and goes, oh yeah, those. Those aren't very uncommon. Did he ever act strangely? And Dan's like, what do you mean? And the EMT goes, well, did he ever behave really inappropriately with anyone and then claim he didn't remember doing so? And Dan's like, it's like, yeah, these things are communicable. So he probably caught them from an authority figure. That's how that's where they usually come from. And they make people do things like that. Was he ever inappropriate with you? I could run a quick test to see if you have these worms in your brain right now. And Dan goes, no, he never messed with me at all, which is a lie. No, he never messed with me at all. No, you don't need to run a test. And the EMT kind of looks at him and then goes, okay, and goes back to sewing up Larry's head. And I think about that a lot. Like, I think about, like, the anxiety that maybe Dave has about certain things and how that may show up in his other work, because it does. And I wish more of his work were in print. I also understand why it's not, but he is easily one of my favorite comic creators of all time because of shit like that. And it's called Dan and Larry in Don't Do That. There are copies on eBay. If you're cool with getting a reader quality copy, you can probably get it for like $30, and I couldn't recommend it enough. It is a wild fucking ride. And it is the exact kind of comic maybe this is misplaced, but I'm kind of afraid that it's the kind of comic people will be afraid to make in the future, because I think there is a contingent of people who claim to enjoy fiction, but they don't. And they have decided, because their reading comprehension skills are so thoroughly lacking, that depiction is approval in fiction. And
I was talking to Iris and Nero the other day about how there is a contingent of teens on the internet that basically want to bring back the Hays Code.
Yeah, it's weird.
That reason. Yeah.
It's weird. It's fucking weird. And it's like, how do you think people write conflict in fiction if you think they agree with every character? Like, that on the face of it, that doesn't make sense. But I do see people occasionally voicing concerns about not wanting to make certain comics and not wanting to make certain fiction, like prose, because they are afraid someone will take the most boneheaded and malicious reading of it possible, because there is social currency to be found in being loud and wrong about fiction these days. And that kind of sucks.
This is making me think of occasionally I fall into holes in the YouTube drama Reddit.
Yeah.
And right now there's a lot of discussion about the YouTuber Lily Orchid.
Okay.
Who, if you don't know, they are a YouTuber with zero reading comprehension.
Okay.
They are, if you hear stories about people claiming that Rebecca Sugar is a Nazi sympathizer, it is probably referencing Lily Orchid's video.
I have to say, I have not heard that, but literally everyone eventually becomes a Nazi in the eyes of certain people, so yeah.
So, yeah, they just have, like, zero reading comprehension, and have the personality that was described as one Redditor as a catheter full of wasps. And I'm like, that's a great insult.
That is fantastic. That is a masterpiece.
Yeah, that's a fantastic insult. But it's just like, they don't understand anything that happens in fiction. Like, everyone is like, every creator is, like, in their mind, is a secret fascist.
Of course.
And a racist and a pedophile.
Of course, naturally, sure.
And it's just like wild to hear like their opinions on stuff, because it is just so like
wrong.
What show are you watching? Like,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah, so someone, Kristen Cheney is saying, I saw a video a while ago reacting to her Dungeon Meshi review, which was, like Kel said, completely misunderstanding the anime. Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know, like, wild that people are just out there showing off how much they don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing that I think is, like the whole, it's wild that you're so proud of what you don't know is a thought that I have had many times, just like on the internet, just watching people go. It's like, wow, you have no idea what you are out here actually admitting to right now, do you?
Also, Spike, other than being a completely unpleasant person, can you guess why YouTube Drama Reddit is talking about her?
Does it turn out she is secretly the fascist all along?
She's secretly the pedophile all along.
She was calling everyone else a pedophile?
Oh god.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course.
There was child pornography on her computer.
Oh boy! Oh gosh! Wow. Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. Fabulous.
I didn't read too much of the details. It might be like a lolicon situation, which honestly not that much better. It's slightly better because it's fake children, but
oh god. Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah.
I maybe that would have been my second guess, but yeah, that's yeah. I mean, that's not a super huge surprise. But yeah, not to like bring it back to Dave Cooper, like obsessed fucking nerd again. But real quick, the thing about his work and the thing about Dan and Larry in Don't Do That is, I think, a thing that suffuses a lot of his later work, and you can see like the little gnarly seed of in Dan and Larry is this fear of being a bad man, and just like a man who is bad in the ways that are not unique to men but are common in men who are bad, if you understand what I mean. He does not want to be a bad man, but I think his work reflects a worry that he may just become one by virtue of being a man. If I were to pursue like a academic degree in comics, like if I wanted like a master's or a PhD,
like just fill it out. I already talked about child porn on the
no, it's like the thing is I'm not like tiptoeing around. It's just there's a lot of stuff. He's written a lot of graphic novels, and like for example, there is there's a book he made called I think it's called Ripple: A Predilection for Tina, and it is a series about, again, one of those things where you're not sure if this is autobio. Like Dan and Larry is clearly fucking autobio, but you're not sure how much of Ripple is autobio and how much is fiction. It is about him being a painter, or a guy who is a painter, who knows, and he hires an artist's model, and he hired her. It should be noted, Dave Cooper is Canadian. And he hired her by coming up to someone on the street who he kind of liked the general look of and went, hey, I am an artist. Here is, a sample of my work. Here's where you can go to see my work, just so you know I'm not just some creep. I am looking for artist models. If you would be interested in being an artist model, here's my phone number. And when he came up to this person, she was very bundled up because Canada. So she had, hat, scarf, big heavy coat. You couldn't really see much of her. And when she showed up later, she was very ugly. And he didn't realize that she was so ugly because he didn't, he couldn't get a good look at her. And it's hard to describe where it goes from there. It's like they try to have sex. And she turns out she is way younger than he thought she was. And it's at the same time, she's really teenagery in multiple ways. Shitty in that way only teenagers can be. To him, a grown man. And there's just a lot going on, more than I can really cover in here. And I just really like everything Dave Cooper does. And I think you should go buy it right now. Ripple, thank you, Alan Lord. Alan Lord agrees with me. Ripple is an astounding read. I learned something new today. Yeah, it's just...
I don't got a lot of patience for sad white guys.
No, this is not sad white guys. This is so much more than that. This is not why won't women fuck me. This isn't why won't the world recognize my genius. This isn't that Fantagraphics shit. This is so fucking wild. Although he is published by Fantagraphics. This is so fucking wild. I just I love everything Dave Cooper does because it is so raw and twisted and personal and also gorgeous. He is his draftsmanship is unrivaled. I love his work. And just, he's so fucking filthy. It's great. Everyone should just buy Dave Cooper books.
I'll pass. Sorry.
You can read them the next time you're here.
No. No.
Oh, it's great. It's oh my god, I'm just thinking of multiple scenes in Dan and Larry I will not describe. It's so good. It's again, no. And Kristen Cheney said in the chat, yeah, I don't think people would be able, they wouldn't feel comfortable making shit like that these days. And yeah, and that kind of breaks my heart a little bit because I think that being able to explore complicated shit that has happened to you in fiction can be a really liberating thing. And quite frankly, the internet is now provably full of people that would have interesting stories to tell or fictionalize or use as inspiration who are now significantly dissuaded, significantly discouraged from doing so because a 15-year-old would interpret anything they put on the page as approval.
Spike.
Yeah.
It's not just 15-year-olds.
Yeah, but, I'm just saying.
Lily Orchid is in her 30s.
I'm sure there are people who are adults who are doing... I'm sorry, are we bringing the room down, Bree? I'm sorry.
I'm just here.
just what are these fucking women talking about? I'm sorry. But yeah, it's just... he's my... I just pulled... Again, for folks who missed it on Blue Sky, my favorite book of his is called Crumple, The Status of Knuckle. And it's about a guy named Knuckle. And the general plot of it is all the women of Earth have now conspired with space aliens to become a parthenogenic species, so they don't need men anymore. And all the men of Earth are liquidated, except for Crumple and a few other men who have been selected by women to survive. And that is the super fast forwarded version. I made a whole thread about it. And when I explain that plot to you, your first instinct, a lot of people's first instinct seems to be oh, that sounds really incel. That sounds really fucked up and gross. But here's the thing. All the men in Crumple, The Status of Knuckle are horrible, horrible people who do deserve to die. And it's not ambiguous. They are misogynists and rapists and pigs and garbage. There is not one redeemable man in the entire book, with the exception of Knuckle, who is only passable because he is passive. He doesn't do anything to stop the horrors around him, but he also does not commit the horrors around him. So he's that kind of guy. And for that, he is spared when the aliens literally laser gun all the men of Earth into mush. Except for him and like a handful of other guys. It's a hell of a book. And it's kind of a reflection of a dude contemplating dudes. And it's like, it's wild that he writes this book, and for the majority of the book, he seems to be taking the side of women who want to literally just eliminate men as a concept. I love Dave Cooper. I'm on the fucking Dave Cooper cheer squad. I'm on the pep team.
You're on Blue Sky, and yeah, it sounds like a hell of a read.
It's so fucking good, Bree. And like when I tell people about it, they're like, "That sounds horrible," and I'm like, "It kind of is, but like in a really good way."
I'm curious. Have you read Manhunt? Gretchen Falker Martin's novel?
I've been meaning to. I have not. Tell me about it.
A hell of a read. And it was maybe ill-advised for me to read it as a double feature with Tell Me I'm Worthless, because both of those are very much trans horror fiction about the horrors of being trans, and there is also the like a sci-fi or fantasy supernatural element, whether it's a haunted house or a zombie plague that like turns people with high enough testosterone into horrible ravenous monsters, but also very much both about the horrors of turf and like turf ideology. But Manhunt specifically is really interesting because of like one of the things that I like that it establishes very quickly with a premise like that. You kind of would have assumptions about like, oh, well, where is this going to go? The first two protagonists are trans women who are trying to basically scrounge and live in this post-apocalyptic America as they are, like, as actual manhunters is the term that they use to hunt down these like ravenous zombies infected by the T-Rex disease, and also like finding different sources of like estrogen and other things to like other T blockers to help themselves. But then they also very quickly introduce a trans man character, is like one of the main romantic interests who has his own very complicated story arc, and basically like gets very quickly into the strange and difficult politics of this kind of scenario, especially with like the main threat of this story actually being this like turf army that has been invading the East Coast, and it is quite gruesome and harrowing of a read, which I definitely have not had that happen at such like as so much like reading fiction. Like normally I don't feel like, oh, I need to like have a sit down and like have some tea like,
and kind of think about that last chapter.
Yeah, I mean, it was the sort of this and Tell Me I'm Worthless, which Tell Me I'm Worthless is a British book about trans woman and another person in their life who basically like three people went into a haunted house and one of them never came out. Another was an incredibly scarred trans woman. The third one became a TERF. And it is about their like all of their shared history and reconnection like years later and how they interact and what ends up happening with that haunted house and everything going on in there. But the POVs are so strong and really well written, but also like getting the secondhand dysphoria from like the poor characters who are like struggling with like gender identity and such in like very like nightmarish circumstances was something special.
Post-apocalyptic circumstances.
Speaking of stuff that's kind of brutal, I've been slowly going through the TV show Baby Reindeer. Which...
Are you about to ruin something?
Cal? I am going to tell you the premise, which is in the ads.
Okay, all right.
Which is... It's about a dude who's being stalked.
Yeah, that much I do know.
And the reason why he doesn't do anything about it to begin with is because when he is he kind of feels bad for his stalker.
Okay.
Because she's really overweight and is older than him and is a compulsive liar. So it's like, clearly this lady's life is very sad. Like, when he first meets her, she comes, like, this is in the first 5 minutes, she comes in and she orders a Diet Coke and then doesn't have money to pay for the Diet Coke.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, process repeats basically every day. That she steals a Diet Coke from his work,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And so that's why he, like, and every time he is about to, like, finally put his foot down and put up a boundary, like, she's just really pathetic, but she's also making his life miserable. So it's really weird. Because it's very clear that there is something wrong with this lady.
Mm-hmm.
And the dude, like, just can't help himself, like, re-entangling with her. Because he feels bad. Like,
he pities her.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why he can't ever, go through getting a restraining order. But she's stalking him. It's very clear that she is ruining his life. But
that's interesting. Yeah, I have Baby Reindeer on my to watch list, but I have not gotten around to it yet. So I'm content if we leave that there.
Yeah.
I'm good with leaving that there.
There's some other stuff that is revealed later that I'm not talking about. But so yeah, the basic premise is just like he pities her, and that's why he can't stop her from stalking him. But it's kind of brutal. I can't watch more than one episode at a time, and I usually just power through everything.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. I how to put this in a diplomatic way. I'm always at a loss to put this in a way where I think the people who need to hear it most would actually hear it. But the thing is, like, I don't think those people are listening to this anyway. It's like a little micro podcast. It's not going to be stumbled across by any of these people. I think about the world of fiction certain people are advocating, and I shudder. You know what I mean? Because I love that complex shit. I love that shit where, like, a perfect example, when I was talking about Crumple the Status of Knuckle on Blue Sky a day before, somebody showed up in the replies, and they had a reading of it. It's like, it was a reading that came from personal experience where they were like, hey, like, from my trans femme perspective, here are the parts that you're sharing of this book. Admittedly, I have not read it, but here are the parts you are sharing of this book that seem really eggy to me. Like, this whole part of the book where Knuckle is like, he clearly likes women, but he feels kind of exiled from, gosh, not to sound like dramatic, but like the truth of what women are, like he feels exiled from womanness, and it's in a way where he can't even figure out what he's doing wrong that make him set so completely far apart from women whom he has no ill will towards, unlike any other fucking man in this book who seem to genuinely hate women with every fiber of their being. He likes women, but for whatever reason, he can't figure out how to gain their confidence or figure out what they want from him or what he should expect from them. And that was like a reading that, it would have never occurred to me. It's like fascinating and like that's like the benefit of complicated work. There are all these different readings you can derive from it that are informed by everybody's individual perspectives. And how to say this without sounding mean? I think there are people out there that I derisively refer to in my head as like the coffee shop AU crowd that not only eschew conflict in real life, but they don't want conflict in their fiction, and they regard any conflict in their fiction the same way they regard like real life fights and discord. And they can't regard it as like a vehicle for a story. They regard it as a thing that needs to be solved and squared away before we can get on with the rest of our lives. Or something that everybody should avoid.
Would you say that they want graphic novels about planning a party?
Kel? Kel, we are not gonna do that! Kel!
That's it. That's all I'll say.
Kel! God, just... how do we fucking redirect from that shit? Bree, what's your favorite color?
God,
help me.
I mean, shit, if we're gonna talk about, like, comics that I have complicated feelings about, I mean, it's One Piece.
Oh, hey, yeah.
Which I was just talking to Bree earlier today about how I don't like the trans dude character in One Piece.
I'm going to be...
You know, fair.
Yeah, I'm going to be real. I don't like One Piece. I find the artwork revolting, so I've never read it.
I'll tell you what I told Bree earlier, what my complaint about the trans dude in One Piece is the trans dude has the same body type as all the ladies.
What, giant tits?
Giant tits, no waist, like a waist that can't fit organs, and big ol' hips. Yep, they're just, that's...
Huh.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I'll have to take your word for it, because I have not read a single page of One Piece.
Well, if I showed you a picture of this trans dude, but without mentioning that it was a trans dude, you probably would not realize it's a trans dude.
Yeah. Me and Abby... Me and Abby Lark, yeah, I'm a One Piece ignorer. Same, I'm also a One Piece ignorer.
I also read a bunch of it and came with the educated, like, informed thing that I do not like it.
Yeah.
So, tell us your complicated feelings about One Piece.
Please.
Rather than our non-complicated dismissal of it.
Yeah, because keep in mind you're going to have to explain everything, because I don't know anything about it.
Oh, fine. Well, so the thing with One Piece is that I kind of, it took me a while for me to really get into it because I was introduced to it at a young age, and so it was definitely, like, formative reading for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you remember the Shonen Jump print magazines, the big phone books that came to America,
Mm-hmm.
like, I was reading those in middle school, and the thing that I always like to talk about is how basically that dropped the same, more or less the same time as I was introduced to Art Spiegelman's Mouse.
Oh, wow.
And so, like, I immediately had this 1-2 punch of, like, oh, comics can be literally anything.
Nice.
Like, you can do super serious, artsy stories, you can have ridiculous fight comics about, like, world religions, you can have cooking comics, like, whatever, anything. And so the thing I love about One Piece was, what immediately grabbed me was, I love Looney Tunes. I love cartoons. And especially early One Piece is Looney Tunes with a plot. Like, that is very much kind of the idea, is that it's riffing on, like, a lot of classic cartoon comedy tropes, and also shonen action adventure stories, which I loved. And I immediately, like, fell in love with that. I loved the heart of the stories because, like, so much of it is about, like, this found family that, like, comes together, and how Luffy is this very charming and lovable idiot of a character who is, ADHD, autistic, asexual king. Love him. Just, like, complete, like, just truly charismatic character. And then all of these other characters who he basically, like, is, like, one way or the other helping them work through their, like, particular traumas and coming together as a, like, chosen family on their, like, grand journey throughout the oceans. And so that kind of, like, hooked me immediately. Of course, Nami became, like, my favorite almost immediately, although Usopp, honestly, is very much also my type, and Nami and Usopp for similar reasons, because, like, so the thing to know is that like Usopp is the guy with the long nose you've probably seen around, Nami being the redhead girl, and
Okay.
these are like, two of the main characters who do not have any like of their own devil fruit powers. They don't have special powers. They are not like particularly strong, and so the thing that I love about the two of them and their particular dynamic is that like Usopp especially, like Uso is literally the word to lie in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So Usopp is literally a liar by trade. His whole thing is that he is he wants to be a brave warrior and like is constantly talking shit that he cannot cash in.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like a thing that I love because these two characters are both like the closest that you get to an ordinary person in these extraordinary circumstances who are still doing the thing, even though by all rights they should not be doing it. What Sakabooks is saying, absolutely, completely true. He is absolutely, Luffy absolutely has high emotional intelligence and complete dumbassery, and that is exactly why I love him. He knows exactly how to help a traumatized whale overcome its obsessive self-destruction, and that apparently involves punching it and then painting on the guy's head. I love that kind of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as like the complicated feelings, well, part of the thing is that, I mean, it's Sanji. It really comes down to Sanji and the weirdness of like Sanji is a character because like, okay, as the text presents itself, like Sanji is like the comedy perv character, like, but he's not introduced that way is the thing. He actually has a whole arc where he's introduced, and his whole thing is actually much more about the importance of food and cooking because one, he is presented as a chef. He is presented as somebody who cooks that is also manly, which is like supposed to be kind of the a subversion of what you might expect from like having the chef on like a pirate ship or whatever. But like his whole story about how he nearly drowns at sea, he gets stranded on a desert island with this guy, and the guy like would rather eat his own leg rather than let this kid starve. Like One Piece is filled with all of these like incredible moments of adult self-sacrifice to ensure the future of the next generation, which is like the sort of iconic, one of the most iconic is when Luffy gets his straw hat at the beginning, where Shanks, this pirate that he grew up idolizing, sacrifices his own arm in order to save Luffy from being killed by a giant monster. And that's where Luffy gets his iconic straw hat from.
Oh, okay.
Shanks giving him this hat to say, hey, return this to me when you become a great pirate.
Oh.
And so that hat is an icon for the series for that exact reason, that it has so much emotional context and also is this like just really like beautiful moments. These like high drama emotional moments are like very important to me. But as Sanji is introduced and he kind of settles in as his like whole importance of like cooking and food, like he is also a flirt, and that becomes a bit more. It becomes more prominent, and then it kind of becomes. There is a nadir, I would say. Like there's a period where he just becomes utterly unbearable to me, and this also gets paired with what's very strangely it is like some of the most progressive trans bits of One Piece, followed immediately by this like almost backlashy like super anti-trans or like transphobic like comedy gags. So so I don't know how much you would have known about like there's a sort of the halfway point. There's a time skip.
Okay.
There's a time skip, and prior to that, there's an arc that introduces this character Ivankov, who is like a giant-headed version of Dr. Frankenfurter. Like that is very much exactly who he's modeled after. Who has a hormone fruit that allows him to change people's hormones, literally the transgender fruit power.
Okay.
And so, like, he's introduced in this prison. Turns out to be the head of, like, one of the most important people in the Revolutionary Army that's fighting the world government. So he is, like, one of the most powerful and important characters, like, opposing an oppressive government. And he has built his own little trans paradise with all of these people who have wildly varying gender presentations. Like, that is, like, a stated... This is all text. And then, though, like, there's a 2-year time skip where the characters all end up in different islands. They train for a while, and Sanji ends up on the island with Ivankov. But rather than the genderqueer characters that we were shown in one arc, they're then instead shown a whole island of very grotesque trans woman caricatures. Like, very much the sort of, like, square jaws, very stubbly, like, dudes with, like, very, like, obviously ill-fitting dresses sort of thing going on. And, yeah, Okama, there's a whole thing with, the Okama as a like Japanese queer culture is like a lot more than I frankly know how to describe. But basically, like Sanji spends like 2 years there, and then is like becomes incredibly obsessed with seeing mermaids because like that's his idea of like the most beautiful woman I guess ever, and he like has a whole thing where he has like horrible memories of the island because he was like chased around on this like trans island and like made to wear a dress at one point. And here's the thing that's also strange, because also at the same time, in the same text, we also get Sanji constantly like acting the most eggy I've ever seen a non like confirmed trans character. Like he is constantly talking about like, oh no, I'm a manly man who doesn't wear dresses. Like I love girls. I'm so like masculine and strong. And the thing that's even wilder is like after this arc where he finally like meets some mermaids and gets that out of his system, he body swaps with Nami and is ecstatic about being in a woman's body. Like he literally tells the person who swaps in that he doesn't want to be swapped back. And there are just so many little things like that where he also like there's more backstory given about Sanji where like the women in his life are very important, which is supposed to be an explanation of like why he's like obsessed with like being a ladies' man and why he insists on treating women with like a light touch. Like one of his characteristics that he refuses to fight women ever in any of the battles in the series. But basically, it really all does revolve around Sanji, this one character who, on the one hand, has embodied some of the worst tendencies of this comedy perv character archetype. And on the other hand, there is just enough text that I am desperate for Oda to just go all the way and just make the character a trans woman. Would that make her perfect? Absolutely not. She would still be a fucking disaster. But it would feel a hell of a lot better than just like the most like obnoxious this dude character I've ever seen in like one of these kinds of shows, and a character who I have a lot of things that I do like about him. Like, and there's a lot of other things with gender that like I have issues with One Piece over. And the strange thing is that like we talked about like Yamato is the trans man character that Kel was referring to, who is like a more recent character who is like introduced with he him pronouns, is given non-binding, whatever you want to call like or like however you want to like dress that up, but like he's just presented as like the same like curvy like thin body type as like all the other.
I posted a picture in Discord, Spike.
Okay.
Yeah. So the thing that's strange is like Oda can do varied women body types. He certainly has no problem with varied male body types. That is always one of the things that I've loved about the comic is how varied his character designs can get. I mean, and like I think for anybody who reads my comics, like knowing that I'm a big One Piece fan probably is not a surprise at all. There's a lot that I try to pull from those and also try to bring my own flair and also try and do things that I don't think Oda does very well. But like with female body types, like the thing is that Oda has shown that he can do that. There's another arc somewhat before the time skip again called Amazon Lily, which is a island full of women, and you might be thinking from like the other descriptions I'm talking about that this could be a disaster. But the wild thing is that like Luffy ends up on this island, and the story is kind of almost immediately just about like, oh, I need to get back to my crew. I need to like just figure out how to get off this island. Like it is the least filled with like horrible sexist tropes that you'd imagine. And there is like also just like a wide variety of body types for the women on the arc, and it's not treated as a like comic factor. Like, oh yeah, Abby's mentioning, yeah, the Alvita, which is like a very frustrating thing too, because it's like a fat woman who is introduced very early on, and like she's also given a very like weird characteristic where she's like supposed to be like very vain, and people like she's not like upset when people don't call her pretty, and then also shows up later again as a skinny lady. But like Amazon Lily has like tons of women that are like broad and bulky, fat, have like square jaws, all kinds of styles, and they are just allowed to exist and are treated well within the text. And so Oda can do those things, which makes it all the more frustrating when he doesn't.
I wish I could stand to look at his art. This sounds more interesting than I gave it credit for. I think it's just I hate the eyes, and I hate the mouths, and I hate the bodies.
And that does count for a lot of it.
I'm sorry.
I can't relate, but like,
yeah.
I sympathize.
Oh, I mean, same. Okay, it's just I don't get. It's like, yeah, that's kind of like the one hurdle I kind of need to get over before I can go any farther. Like, if do you remember when you would be studying for tests in school and you would have the textbook open and you'd have it in front of you and you'd be reading it and you would read a page and you would absorb fucking nothing. Just nothing. You know you read that page, but nothing. It just bounced right off of you. That's what it's like when I read a comic and I don't like the art. Like, I don't absorb anything about it. So it's...
So I read 19 volumes. Because volume 19 is where people told me it gets good.
Were they lying to you?
It is not for me because the first 19 or so volumes are Luffy meets a new crew member. They have a problem. Luffy helps them solve that problem. They join the crew, and then they meet the next crew member who has a problem, and then they solve that problem, and then it gets the crew. And it's not a problem with it taking a long time to get going, but oddly enough, watching House of the Dragon helped me articulate what was wrong with One Piece in my mind.
Okay, and that is?
In both House of the Dragon and One Piece, at least in the first 19 volumes of One Piece, everyone has the same relationship with Luffy. So I'm not getting different sides of him because everyone is someone who just met him that he is helping out. So everyone is starting from square one with Luffy. And a lot of the stories that I like, there is at least one character who has known the main character for ages. So while they might be on square one with a lot of the other cast, there is one person who is like known them forever. So you get to see a little bit of a different side of them. And so with One Piece, it's I have met a new person. We are getting to know each other. I have helped them out, and now they're on my crew. And you don't really get much more beyond those introductions until what is called the Arlon Park, or however you say it, which is where you... Yeah, but even then, I was still like, I feel like I'm not getting anything new out of Luffy. I got something new out of Nami. But I just was like, I'm not getting anything new from Luffy. I feel like there wasn't the roundedness or variety that I wanted in a main character. And so the way this manifests in House of the Dragon is everyone's doing their court intrigue nonsense. But no one has a friend and no one can trust each other. So you only ever see everyone's court, like, manipulator face. You never see no one has a friend, basically. So you don't get any different sides of everyone. You only get the player of the game side.
this is apropos of nothing, and I apologize because, I cannot fully participate in this discussion, but this is like tying back in, since we're talking about, anime/manga, and we were previously talking about people who enjoy being loud and wrong about things. Does anyone remember a while back that was just this thing that was so indicative of how disconnected from the nature of reality certain people are? Where, all right, I am not a big Phoenix Wright fan, but I'm aware of the existence of Phoenix Wright, the video games where you are a lawyer and your assistant talks to ghosts, and this is treated as totally normal. The Phoenix Wright games.
Normal court.
Yeah.
You cross-examine a parrot.
Perfectly normal, perfectly healthy. There was this thing that people like you saw them in real time trying to get it going. Like they were trying to light the torches and trying to pass out the pitchforks. Where someone was all like, everybody, I have discovered that the artist who does the art for the Phoenix Wright video games has done pornography. Does anyone else remember that, or is it just me?
I don't remember that because I don't pay attention to those people.
Twitter recently,
no one I know would be upset by this. I think I did know that the artist drew a lot of yaoi. Why there's all the homoerotic subtext, but no one presented that to me as like a bad thing. It was more just like, oh, that's why Edgeworth and Phoenix are fucking.
Like in the broom closet. But no, it's like this was actually like presented as a thing. This is like presented as, forgive me for the use of terminology, but I can think of nothing better suited, a cancelable offense. And I remember like marveling at that because it's like, it's so indicative of the level of ignorance at work among these people who, you will never convince me this is not about power. Like this is, they run on the same fuel that fuels the people trying to ban the books I publish in Texas. The idea that they can have this concrete effect on the world simply by being shrill, And like, first of all, this artist is not American. And so your American standards have no power here, but just like the assumption that they would, it's like, oh God, I hope you're 12, because that would make this borderline understandable. But if you are 30 and expecting monocles to pop in Japan because the person who draws the Phoenix Wright games images drew a dick that one time, I have some terrible news for you. Anyway, that's just what I was thinking of.
Yeah, no, I always heard about the artist drew porn as a like this they fucking explanation, like never like, oh, how dare Pearl Clutch. Which might just be, the circles that I gather in the internet.
This is one of those things where people always tell me, it's like, these aren't children's Spike. But, I think a lot of them are. And I think that's probably why you didn't hear about it. Like, I pursue this shit. I enjoy it. I, like, shovel it in my face like a toddler with jelly beans, where I, like, fucking choke on it and die. But I enjoy myself the whole time. And so I'm aware of when this shit goes down.
This is the reason that I hate being on social media. I don't want to be in this. There was a period when I was on Twitter, when it was still called Twitter, where I would log on and I would see the hot takes of the hot takes of the hot takes, and I would diligently spend my time figuring out the source, and it was always stupid.
I will call Twitter X when Elon Musk doesn't dead name his child.
Yeah, Bree, absolutely. It's all incredibly fucking stupid, and it's like that's kind of like a part of the appeal to me, like how fucking stupid it is, how these, like, all these people, like, all right, so like the scenes these days, like there's this huge morass of like what is politely referred to as commentary, which is just people talking about other people in the scene. But the thing is, this is the beautiful part, where since they do it on YouTube and Twitch, that is how they pay their rent, by basically gossiping, by talking about each other. Therefore, there is a literal financial incentive to fucking lie about each other and talk dirt. And so if they can find the nastiest, hottest tea on a person who is a friend, they will instantly betray that friend, because if they do so, they will make $1,000. And like watching them just kind of Ouroboros style just tear hanks out of one another and just like gnaw away in this like cannibalistic orgy of resentment and betrayal is very entertaining.
I can't relate. In the same way that you feel disgust looking at One Piece,
yes.
I feel disgust looking, even thinking about that kind of drama.
Yeah, fair enough. And you know what? That's part of the beauty of this world. We can all have different interests and different preoccupations. We can all hold hands like the little statues in It's a Small World. No, they ripped that out, didn't they? I don't know. But there used to be It's a Small World in Disneyland.
Like the end of Us.
Yeah, just everybody just holding hands and just looking off into the sunset with shiny bright eyes. That's us. And I'm at the end and I'm holding your hand and I'm going, you hear about, and you just go, shh. That's the beauty.
Have you heard the good word of our Lord and Savior, Monkey D. Luffy?
Yes, Monkey D. Luffy. And I'll just be all like, so there was this guy on Kick, and everyone's just like, shut up, Spike.
So
what is Kick?
Kick is where you go when you're banned from Twitch for being horrible. That is what Kick is. Like, too shitty for Twitch. That's who's on Kick.
So, anyway, Bree, my favorite shonen is Yu Yu Hakusho. No shonen has taken Yu Yu Hakusho from my heart. They're all...
Did you happen to watch Yu Yu Hakusho when you were 12?
No.
Oh, okay. Because, you know, that's that age where, you know, you interface with media and it's like the best media you've ever seen.
I mean, I was in late high school, I think, when it aired,
okay.
But not. I was not 12.
Okay.
So I should reread that. It's been quite a while since I've read or watched Yu Yu Hakusho.
So the manga's weird, because part of why I like Yu Yu Hakusho is the guy who made it. He just changed the plot randomly when he got bored of what was going on.
The dream.
Because, so Spike, the beginning of Yu Yu Hakusho is the main character is a ghost who has to do good deeds to get back into his body. And it's very clearly that the author got bored of that concept because now he's alive again and now he fights demons.
As one does.
That's why he's called Spirit Detective. Like that's the title of the series.
Yeah, so what are like the first 5 volumes are condensed into 4 episodes of the anime because it's like the people that like this don't care about ghosts doing good deeds. They're here for the demon fights. And
I should probably
also his mentor is a crabby old lady. And I feel like you don't see teen boys who have female mentors very often.
You do not. Ooh,
and she's like a crabby old lady who whenever he like gives her lip, she like throws a cigarette at him and tells him to shut the fuck up. Genkai is #goals. That's what I want to be when I get old.
Speaking of getting old,
he does have his buddy. He has one member of the crew is a childhood friend who, while he develops a specific relationship with all the other characters that he just met, he does have one guy that's known him and gotten in fights with him for forever.
Speaking of getting old, that random motorcycle in there made me go, yeah, sorry about that. That is my saved poses file, where I got all the poses off my old machine and put them in a file and saved them in case I needed them. And now when I need a preset pose, I just come in here, or a horse, or a couch. I come in here and grab it. Or a motorcycle.
I really want to figure out how to use the pose thing.
Oh, they're fantastic. You really should. They're great. I love them.
Yeah, I mean, like, I call myself Linda already, so, like...
You have the newest Clip Studio?
I do.
Because what's great is you can just put a photo in there and it will make the figure do the pose that's in the photo.
Yeah. It's a real... Ooh, excuse me. Oh, that's my sign. It's a really cool tool. But everybody, it is 10:08 and we customarily shut down at 10. Kel, Bree, any closing thoughts?
I just want people to have a buddy in my fiction. That's what I really want, apparently, is I want someone who's been friends with someone for so long that they not only know how to support them, but also how to dig their claws in real deep and get vicious.
Relatable. Bree?
I think that Luffy has many friends, and that is the Straw Hats, and also that Sanji is trans.
Thought-provoking. As for myself, this page has taken me no less than 3 weeks because my life has been an unending hell for the past month or so. But hopefully, she said with a look on her face that was inscrutable, hopefully in early July, it'll all be worth it. Everybody, on Monday, we launched the Indiepocalypse Iron Circus Comics team up. We've made some very strange little games, and we would love your support. Per usual, we launch at 11 a.m. Central, which is 9 a.m. if you're a West Coaster like Kel, and noon if you're an East Coaster. Please support this strange new experiment from Iron Circus and back us and get these weird little games. I have been Spike. The comic you have been watching me draw is called Blokada. It is about Fievel Mouskowitz and some Keebler elves doing a robbery during the Russian Revolution. You can read it at blokada.com, http:, not https, because it's a forwarding address, http://blokada.com. There are 55 pages up. I will get this last page up, 56, before I go to ALA. That is a promise from me to you. I founded and run Iron Circus Comics. Go to ironcircus.com. We recently soft launched the new store and we'll be having a sale soon. And you can check it out and see how you like the new store. We like it a lot. Follow me on Blue Sky, Iron Spike, all one word. Follow us on Facebook, Iron Circus Comics. Follow us on Instagram, Iron Circus. Follow us on Twitter, Iron Circus Comics, with comics spelled COMIX, because that's the only way it would fit.
I'm Kel. I make comics about gay werewolves in the future at kelmcdonald.com. That's what I've been drawing while we talk. I don't like social media, but they're all linked on my website anyway. Have a good one. That's it. Bree, where's your stuff?
Well, I actually have a website called breewolfstuff.com. You can go on there. Bree Wolf Stuff is also my handle on all social media. So that's Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, any of those Bree Wolf Stuff.
All right. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. Please like and subscribe and hit the bell so you get a notice every time we have one of these. As usual, it's been a slice. Y'all have been wonderful. Thank you again for coming to listen to us babble about stuff that don't matter. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.